study Life More Abundantly, I'll be talking about things pertaining to what the Israelites believe pertaining to death and the resurrection. Hebrews chapter 6, verse 1 and 2, where we talked about the basic principles of the doctrine of Mashiach. Now, many people, they want to know about giants, and they want to know all kind of super spiritual things and demons and Nephilim and this and that, but they don't even know the basic principles of the doctrine of Mashiach. Why know about some things that does you no good as far as your soul's sake, when you should learn and know things that is a benefit to your soul, like repentance from dead works. Repentance from dead works helps you to be clean so that you can meet our Maker face to face in prayer. He can hear our prayer. Faith towards Elohim draws us closer to Elohim. The doctrine of baptism. Mashiach told Nicodemus that you have to be born again of the water and of the Ruach, or you can't even see the kingdom of Elohim in John chapter 3. But there's a doctrine of the laying on of hands and the doctrine of eternal judgment. But the one that we're focusing in on for this series is the doctrine of the resurrection of the dead. And so that's what we're talking about today. Those Israelites, they did not have a king. They had leaders, they had elders, but they did not have a king. And they looked around and saw all the other nations around them. And they said unto Samuel the prophet, who was the one who spoke to the Most High YAH for the nation, behold, you are old, and your sons walk not in your ways. Now make us a king to judge us like the nations. So they wanted to have a king so that the king can judge them like all the nations that Most High YAH was causing them to beat up and saying, don't be like them. They decided, hey, we want to have a king and be like them. 1 Samuel 12:12. They already had a king, and they insulted their king as a result of asking for a king. It says, Yahuwah, your Elohim, was your king, but they didn't realize Yahuwah, their Elohim, was their king. They was asking for a king that was a man. See, they wanted to go from having the best king that anybody could ever have to going towards having a king that was a man with faults and flaws and just all kind of issues. 1 Samuel 10:21. So they go to the selection process for a king. They went to looking for a king, and they call all the tribes together. It's like, well, let's pick tribe by tribe and see tribe the Most High YAH is going to be satisfied with getting a king from. And so they went through all the tribes. 1 Samuel 10:21, when he had caused the tribe of Benjamin to come near by their families, the family of Matri was taken, and Saul, the son of Kish, was taken. And when they sought him, he could not be found. They was like, where's Saul? Where, Saul's supposed to be the king. Where is he? Where is he? And it's like, man, we can't find Saul. Well, anybody saw Saul? Anybody? And therefore, they inquired of Yahuwah further, if the man should yet come thither. And Yahuwah answered, behold, he had hid himself among the stuff. King Saul, he was said to be taller than anybody around. But all of a sudden, they calling him to be the king, the first king of Israel. And that dude was hiding. I mean, he was hiding amongst this stuff. And they had to inquire of Yahuwah. And Yahuwah's like, behold, he had hid himself among this stuff. He's hiding. It's like Yahuwah is trying to call you, but you hiding. You hiding for some reason. It was typical of Saul that he didn't seem to want to do what the Most High YAH was wanting to do. 1 Samuel 14:24. Saul became king, and he doesn't follow through on anything that the prophet Samuel tells him to follow through on. 1 Samuel 14:24, and the men of Israel were distressed that day, for Saul had adjured the people, saying, cursed be the man that eateth any food until evening, and that I may be avenged on my enemies. So none of the people tasted any food. So they were in battle. And during this battle, the guys who was fighting the war, they were starving. And King Saul, instead of saying, look, get y'all energy up, go ahead, get your power bar, get your Gatorade and energy drink, whatever you got to do, because we're going to fight till the sun go down. But Saul adjured the people, saying, cursed be the man that eats any food until evening. Nobody better eat anything until evening, that I may be avenged on my enemies. He wants to be avenged on his enemies, but he's wanting those guys to go out there and fight weak and famished without no food. So none of the people tasted any food, and all they of the land came to the woods, and there was honey on the ground. Now they walking through the wood looking for the enemy, and there's honey on the ground, and they like, man, if I can just get me some of that honey. They were salivating like Pavlov's dog. I mean, they was wanting that honey bad. Verse 26, and when the people were come into the wood, behold, the honey dropped, but no man put his hand to his mouth, for the people feared the oath. Look, honey was dropping, it was falling on them. And it was like, man, I want to taste that honey. But King Saul said, if anybody eat that, he's gonna die. If anybody eat anything before sundown, he's dead. 27. But Jonathan heard not when his father, King Saul, charged the people with the oath. Wherefore he put the end of his rod that was in his hand and dipped it in honeycomb and put his hand to his mouth, and his eyes were enlightened. So here, King Saul's son, Jonathan, he's like, man, look at all this honey. But he didn't hear what his daddy said. If somebody eat anything before sundown, he's going to be dead, because I want my enemies killed by sundown. And he didn't hear that. And he was like, man, look at all this honey. I'm going to get me some of this honey. And so he started eating that honey and everything. He's like, man, he dipped his rod in it. And this man, he was chopping it up. And it says his eyes was enlightened, meaning he got his strength back again, which would have made sense if this guy Saul was a wise king. He would have been like, y'all eat y'all something, build your strength up. Verse 35, next thing you know, Saul builds an altar to Yahuwah. The same was the first altar that he built unto Yahuwah. So he's building altars like he's a priest. But on top of making just these rules and things that's unwise. So he builds an altar unto Yahuwah that day. And it's like, wow, he shouldn't have been doing that. That was the job of Samuel the prophet. Verse 37. And Saul asked counsel of Elohim. So he built an altar and asked counsel of Elohim, shall I go down after the Philistines? Will you deliver them into the hand of Israel? But he answered him not that day. So Yahuwah was like, I ain't talking to you at all. You build an altar, it's not your function. Stay in your lane. Stay in your lane. Let's go back. We saw in verse 27, Jonathan didn't hear what his daddy said. And so Jonathan went ahead, he got him some honey and he ate that. Saul in verse 35 built an altar to Yahuwah. He shouldn't have been doing that, because that was the function of Samuel the prophet, not the function of Saul the king. Saul the king was supposed to get what thus said Yahuwah from Samuel the prophet, but he decides he's going to build his own altar, and the Most High YAH did not answer him according to the end of verse 37. And Saul was like, man, why is not the Most High YAH answering me when I'm asking him, is he going to be with us in battle? Did somebody do something wrong? And they figured out that somebody did something wrong. Somebody went against Saul's word and ate some of that honey. Verse 43, then Saul said to Jonathan, tell me what you have done. And Jonathan told him and said, I did but taste a little honey with the end of the rod that was in my hand, and lo, I must die. Yeah, so Jonathan's like, man, I didn't know you made this rule, but I don't eat nothing till evening, and I saw the honey and I ate some, so I guess I got to die. I'm willing to die. Verse 45, what ends up happening is the people said to Saul the king, shall Jonathan die, who had wrought this great salvation in Israel? Because when Jonathan ate the honey, he got energy and he went on a killing spree. He was killing everybody, and he was the one who saved the day because he actually ate something and had strength to fight. And so the people said to Saul, shall Jonathan, your son, die, who had wrought this great salvation in Israel? Elohim forbid. As Yahuwah liveth, there shall not one hair of his head fall to the ground, for he had wrought with Elohim this day. And so the people rescued Jonathan, that he died not. So instead of King Saul saying, look, I swore to the Most High, but the people said, no, you're not going to kill Jonathan. But in Numbers 30 verse 2, it says, if a man vow a vow unto Yahuwah, swear an oath to bind his soul with a bond, he shall not break his word. He shall do according to all that proceed out of his mouth. It says, so the people rescued Jonathan and died not. Now, King Saul should have said, look, I've made a vow to the Most High that whoever eat is going to die. But they talked him out of the vow. It's sad how many people today, they'll vow something like, give me that new car. I'm going to make sure that I pray every day. And about 5-10 days later, they ride in their new car and they ain't said ne'er one prayer because they went back on their word. And so King Saul, he didn't take the things of the Most High YAH serious, because he could make a vow to the Most High and it didn't mean nothing to him. It meant absolutely nothing to him. Chapter 15. Let's keep it in context. The Israelites had to fight against the Amalekites. And in verse 3, King Saul was told, this is what the Most High YAH says. He says, now go and smite Amalek and utterly, completely destroy all that they have, and spare them not, but slay both man and woman, infant and suckling, ox and sheep, camel and ass. So it was like, man, go and utterly, completely destroy the Amalekites. Kill the men, the women, the children, the babies, livestock, everything. Kill everything that they have. But in verse 9, when the battle was ensued and King Saul was victorious, this would happen. 1 Samuel 15:9. But Saul And the people spared Agag and the best of the sheep and of the oxen and of the fatlings and the lambs and all that was good, and would not utterly destroy them. They wouldn't utterly, he was told to utterly destroy them, but they would not utterly destroy them. But everything that was vile and refused, that they destroyed utterly. So if it didn't look like a good sheep or a good lamb, if it didn't look good, they went on and killed it. But man, this one looked pretty good. This man, I don't know about this one, man. We could keep this one. And so Samuel the prophet comes, and he's like, man, what's going on over here? In verse 13, and Samuel came to Saul, and Saul said to him, this is what Saul says to Samuel: blessed be you of Yahuwah. I have performed the commandment of Yahuwah. Now, if you think that King Saul performed the commandment of Yahuwah, put me a Y in the chat. If you think that he did not perform the commandment of Yahuwah, put me an N in the chat. Did he perform what Yahuwah told him to utterly destroy? I'm just trying to figure out, for some kind of reason in King Saul's mind, he was like, hey, blessings, Samuel, man, good to see you. Dap him up, hey, brother. And he come like, look, I performed the commandment of Yahuwah, just like you told me. That Saul was either delusional, or he just thought he could fake it till he make it or something. It's like, I see King Agag and all of these sheep and stuff, and you perform what Yahuwah said. Verse 20. And Saul said to Samuel, yeah, I have obeyed the voice of Yahuwah. He said it twice. He reminded these people, like, some people, I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm gonna give you some wisdom. If somebody say something that ain't true, and be like, yeah, I always have to wash them dishes because I'm always doing the dishes all the time. And they don't always do the dishes because you do the dishes sometime. You better check that rascal quick. You better check them quick, because the more they say it, the more they start believing it. And if you don't check them the first time they say it, they're going to keep repeating that lie, and they're going to make as though they right and you wrong. And you won't be able to back them out of that lie if you don't check them the first time. I'm going to tell you, I learned that. That's some wisdom I learned when somebody says something that ain't straight. Like, man, I'm always doing that. And nobody else will be like, no, bro, no, you don't always do nothing. Who did it yesterday? Well, you did, but I always know. There ain't no always if I did it yesterday. So Samuel came, and Saul said to Samuel, yeah, I have obeyed the voice of Yahuwah. It was like, man, this is the second time he's saying he did what Yahuwah commanded. For some reason, he must think Samuel was a fool or something, where Samuel would just fall for that. Saul said to Samuel, yeah, I have obeyed the voice of Yahuwah, and have gone the way which Yahuwah sent me, and have brought Agag, the king of Amalek, and have utterly destroyed the Amalekites. If you utterly destroyed the Amalekites, what's King Agag doing alive? Saul was trying to fake it until he make it. Some folks, they could twist words like that and have people fooled. But in verse 21, but the people took the spoil, the sheep, the oxen, the chief of the things which should have been utterly destroyed, to sacrifice unto Yahuwah your Elohim in Gilgal. So he's like, the people, they took the sheep and the oxen and all the good stuff. They was going to sacrifice it to Yahuwah, your Elohim. Not my Elohim, but your Elohim. Because I don't do nothing Yahuwah said anyway. I'm going to do my own thing. He's your Elohim. So King Saul was like, he was letting Samuel know right then and there that Yahuwah was not someone he regards. But he starts blaming others for something that he was responsible for. He was the head, the chief, the king, and should have had all of those things utterly destroyed, as the Most High YAH said. Verse 22, and Samuel the prophet said, had Yahuwah as great delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices? Is Yahuwah pleased with burnt offerings and sacrifices from sheep and oxen that he told you to destroy? Had Yahuwah had great delight in burnt offering and sacrifices, as in obeying the voice of Yahuwah? Behold, to obey is better than sacrifice, and to hearken to the fat of rams. So Samuel the prophet tells King Saul to obey is better than to sacrifice. Don't tell me you're doing something for the Most High, and the Most High told you don't even do that. Just obey what he's saying. He tells him like this in verse 23, for rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft. Witchcraft is a sin, and rebellion is just like it. It's the same thing, is what he's saying. And stubbornness is as iniquity and idolatry, because you have rejected the word of Yahuwah. He had also rejected you from being king. Now, if y'all believe that the Most High, he was just clowning when he said, King Saul, you rejected from being king, somebody put me a Y in there. But if you knew that the Most High YAH, he wasn't playing when he said, Saul, you rejected for being the king. Somebody throw me a 100 in the chat. I don't know. Most High YAH, he might play like some of us play. Like, man, yeah, I'm going to do that. I promise. I swear to God, I'm going to do this. I'm in trouble today. So if you get me up out of this jail today, I promise I'm going to pray every day. Every day. 10 days didn't pass and we ain't prayed one time. Most High don't play like that. When the Most High say something, you could put your money on it. You could bet on it. It's a sure bet that it's going to happen. It's going to go down. So Samuel the prophet told him, because you have rejected the word of Elohim, he had also rejected you from being king. And guess what? Guess who heard Prophet Samuel tell King Saul, you are rejected from being king? The whole army heard that. The whole army, because they was there fighting the Amalekites. Samuel the prophet came and heard all of these sheep and oxen and stuff like that, and saw King Agag still alive. He's like, man, to obey is better than to sacrifice, and rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft. And because you have rejected the word of Yahuwah, he had also rejected you from being king. And the guys in the army is like, ooh, man, you heard? Ooh, he said he rejected from being king. Man, I feel sorry for that, Saul. I feel sorry. In verse 35, it tells us, and Samuel came no more to see Saul until the day of his death. Nevertheless, Samuel mourned for Saul, and Yahuwah repented that he had made Saul king over Israel. Look, Samuel came no more to see Saul until the day of his death. I'm going to take it from you a little bit, Keith. I got to deal with that where it says Samuel came no more to see Saul until the day of his death. How can Samuel go to see Saul on the day of his death? That don't even make sense. In the King Jimmy, it says Samuel came no more to see Saul until the day of his death. And that makes it seem as though Samuel came to see Saul when Saul died, the day Saul died. In the reverse interlinear, it says, and to the day of his death, Samuel never again visited Saul. Samuel mourned for Saul, and Yahuwah regretted that he had made Saul king over Israel. Let me show you what it says. Until the day of his death, Samuel never again visited Saul. So whose death is it talking about? It makes it seem like King Saul. But let me give it to you in the net Bible. It says, until the day he died, Samuel did not see Saul again. Samuel did, however, mourn for Saul, but Yahuwah regretted that he had made Saul king over Israel. So until the day he died. Who is he? Who is he? Well, I'm going to cut to the chase. He is, this little number right there tells us, he, that is Samuel. So until the day Samuel died, Samuel never did go see Saul again. He was like, man, Yahuwah rejected you from being king. I ain't going to see you no more. I ain't going to see you no more. And I'm pointing this verse out specifically for those who study, because in this verse here, 1 Samuel 15:35, a lot of people get tripped up thinking that Samuel went to see Saul on the day Saul died. And that's incorrect. Is that Prophet Samuel rather never did go to see Saul the king again, but King Saul came to visit Samuel when Samuel was on his deathbed. 1 Samuel 17, this dude loudmouth named Goliath, he comes, he's trying to badmouth the armies of Israel. 17:33, it tells us when David went and he was going to fight Goliath, this is what Saul said. And Saul said to David, you are not able to go against this Philistine to fight with him, for you art but a youth, and he a man of war from his youth. King Saul told David, you can't fight with this dude. You're just a boy. And he been fighting since he was a boy. You just a little boy. But King Saul, he was the tallest guy around. He was the tallest guy, it tells us. And in verse 38, what David's like, man, I'm gonna go and kill this Philistine. And in verse 38, so and Saul armed David with his armor. So Saul's like, man, well, here, take my armor and go fight. And he put a helmet of brass on his head. Also, he armed him with a coat of mail. And David girded his sword upon his armor. He essayed to go, for he had not proved it. And David said to Saul, I cannot go with these, for I have not proved them. And David put them off him. Look, King Saul didn't want to go fight Goliath. And so he's like, David, you go and take my armor and stuff, put that stuff on you, put the helmet on you and everything. And you go on, it says you're going to fight. You want to go fight, go ahead and fight. And here he was the king. He was the king, and the kings back then wasn't like our lazy presidents and stuff today, where they like, I'm gonna start this war and send y'all sons. They was the ones who went out there and fight the battles too. I'll tell you what, we have a whole lot less wars if the presidents would have to get out on the battlefield too. But King Saul's like, here, David, take my armor and stuff, and you can go fight. Instead of saying, well, David, you just a boy, you can't fight with this grown man. He's been fighting since he was a little child. But King Saul was like, man, take my arm and go fight him. I mean, I mean, that dude, he was something else. He was something else. Chapter 18, verse 6. So y'all know the story. David killed Goliath and everything. David gets put in the army. He goes, start going to battle and everything. And next thing you know, in 1 Samuel 18:6, and it came to pass, as they came, when they came from battle, when David was returned from the slaughter of the Philistine, that the women came out of all the cities of Israel singing and dancing to meet King Saul with tabrets, with joy, and with instruments of music. Now, look what happened here. When David returned from the slaughter of the Philistines, David returned from the slaughter of the Philistine. It said the women came out of all the cities of Israel singing and dancing, how like this, to meet King Saul. To meet King Saul. Now, David went and fought the battle, but when he returned victorious and the women come out singing and dancing, King Saul was right there. I can imagine that dude had his armor on. It was all shined up and everything. Everybody else's armor was all beat up and blooded and grass stains from rolling around, fighting in the dirt and everything. His was all polished and everything. Had a ton of medals on his chest and everything. He had every medal imaginable. But David came from the slaughter, and they came singing and dancing to meet King Saul. The women gonna let us know what actually went down. In verse 7, and the women answered one another as they played, they were singing and dancing, and said, Saul had slain his thousands, and David his tens of thousands. And Saul was very wroth. Saul was upset, and the saying displeased him. And he said, they have ascribed unto David 10,000s, and to me they have ascribed but thousands. And what can he have more but the kingdom? And Saul eyed David from that day forward. The women let us know who was really doing all the fighting. They was like, Saul killed 1,000 back in his day when he actually went to war, but David killed 10,000. He's that dude, he know how to fight. And Saul was upset. And so Saul got this evil ruach on him, and he was eyeing David from that day forward. And in verse 11, it says that they was at the party one night, and Saul cast a javelin, for he said, I will smite David even to the wall with it, and David avoided him out of his presence. King Saul, he was like, man, he hated David. He threw a javelin at him. It's like, man, you can't get more personal than that, where somebody actually throw a javelin at you. It's like, man, you know that person don't like you. You know that person wants to see you gone. Verse 12, and Saul was afraid of David because Yahuwah was with him and was departed from Saul. Yahuwah departed from Saul. Remember, Yahuwah said he rejected him as king. He departed from Saul. And that went on for quite some time. David had to duck and dodge from Saul. 1 Samuel 28, King Saul kept after David, kept trying to kill David, and didn't know David was his blessing. But he was so jealous of David, and he had an evil ruach on him, where he just wanted to murder David, the guy who was doing everything to keep his kingdom intact. There was going to be a battle against the Philistines. And here was the problem for King Saul. In verse 3, now Samuel was dead. Now Samuel had died, y'all, and all Israel had lamented him. Samuel was dead and gone, and it says they lamented him and buried him in Ramah, even in his own city. And Saul had put away those that had familiar spirits and the wizards out of the land. So Samuel was dead and buried, and Saul, he went ahead per Torah, and he got rid of all of those with familiar spirits, with the wizards, the witches, and all of those type folks. He got rid of them. Verse 4, and the Philistines gathered themselves together and came and pitched in Shunem, and Saul gathered all Israel together, and they pitched in Gilboa. And when Saul saw the host of the Philistines, he was afraid. Surprise, he was afraid. He was afraid of David, it said. He was hiding amongst the stuff when they were trying to call him to come in and be the king. His son Jonathan was fighting a battle, and he was over there making some bogus laws, talking about don't eat nothing till sundown, while his very own son was fighting and killing everybody after he ate some honey and got his strength back. And of course, King Saul never did kill Jonathan per his word, but it says that he was about to fight with the Philistines, and he was afraid, and his heart greatly trembled. His heart, man, that dude's heart was quivering. And Saul saw the Philistines getting ready for war, and he was afraid. Verse 6, and when Saul inquired of Yahuwah, Yahuwah answered him not, neither by dreams, nor by Urim, nor by prophet. Saul evidently tried to build himself another altar again, and he didn't realize the first time Yahuwah don't answer you when you build your altar like that, because it wasn't his job to build altars, it was the prophet's job. But Saul inquired of Yahuwah, and Yahuwah answered him not, neither by dreams. He couldn't get a dream from Yahuwah, nor by Urim. The priest had the Urim. He couldn't get the priest to tell him anything, nor by prophets. He couldn't get the prophets to say anything. He could not get an answer from nobody. That dude could not phone a friend. Verse 7, then said Saul unto his servant, seek me a woman that had a familiar spirit, that I may go to her and inquire of her. And his servant said, behold, there is a woman with a familiar spirit at Endor. Wait a minute. In verse 7, it's telling us that Saul tells his servant, go seek me a woman that had a familiar spirit, that I might go to her and inquire of her. His servants, they say, hey man, that's a witch in Endor. What he said in verse 3, and Saul had put away those that had familiar spirits and the wizards out of the land. Now, if Saul had put away those that had familiar spirits and the wizards out of the land, what is this woman, this witch of Endor, still doing hanging around? Did y'all think that King Saul, he did it again where he was told to do something? He was told to get rid of the Amalekites, and he had the Amalekites still hanging around. He was told to utterly destroy everything they had, and their oxen and everything was still hanging around. And he was probably told, hey, get rid of all those with familiar spirits, all of those with witches and warlocks and all this other stuff, and get them out of the land. And there's a woman in Endor with a familiar spirit still. Now, in verse 7, look what King Saul said. He said, seek me a woman. Is that telling y'all something? Is that telling y'all? If that's telling y'all something, somebody put me a Y in the chat. If you don't understand what I'm trying to say, put me a U in the chat. That's telling me when he says seek me a woman, he already knew that he didn't get rid of everybody. He knew that there was a woman that he left just in case, in his side pocket, in his change pocket, just in case I need to go and check her out. You never know, because Yahuwah don't talk to me sometimes. Every time I break commandment and I do things that ain't straight, Yahuwah don't speak to me. I'm going to keep this one. Seek me a woman that had a familiar spirit. I have seen this thing back in my church days where sometimes people don't get an answer from the Most High YAH. And the first thing they do is they run to somebody in the world for the solution. The world always have the answer. And the answer is always something that we love. Man, I love that because it feels good, it sounds good, it tastes good, it smells good. It don't go with the book, with the answer you would get from the book. But King Saul decided, I'm not going to get my answer from the book. I'm not going to go to Yahuwah. I'm not going to try and do what's right towards the Most High YAH so I can get an answer from him. But what he did was he ran straight up to the world to get his answers, straight to the Witch of Endor. He had in his side pocket, just waiting for a rainy day, just like today. Saul, he was seemed to me like one of these people that he could do anything he wanted because God knows his heart. God knows my heart. He gonna forgive me. I'm gonna go on and do this, and he gonna forgive me anyway, because he know my heart. He sure do know your heart. Go read that in Jeremiah 17:9. But every time he messed up, he would either blame somebody or he would make excuses for why he personally would not obey Torah. I'm gonna tell you, that's the church mentality, and we can't have that church mentality as Torah keepers. When the Most High YAH says in his book, you shall not do this or you shall do that, we need to obey that. That church mentality, it says, just do it, and God will forgive you. He'll forgive you. And you're going to forget. You tripped up. You went to the world for something. But Most High YAH, he be writing stuff down in it. And he just waiting on the judgment day to spring it out and say, remember this time here? And so I'm saying, don't be playing with your soul like that, because the Most High YAH is not playing with us like that. He is not flimsy and flexible on his word like we are flimsy and flexible on our word. We can't do that. And so in Deuteronomy 18:10, there shall not be found among you anyone that make his son or daughter to pass through the fire, or that use divination, or an observer of times, or an enchanter, or a witch of Endor, or a charmer, or a consulter with familiar spirits. Notice that it's a consulter with spirits, somebody who consult or talks with spirits, or a wizard, or a necromancer. A necromancer is somebody who's trying to communicate with dead people. Your loved ones are gone. You cannot talk with them. For all that do these things are an abomination unto Yahuwah. I didn't write this. I didn't write this. This is book. This is book. For all that do these things are an abomination unto Yahuwah. Because of these abominations, Yahuwah, your Elohim, doth drive them out before you. You shall be perfect with Yahuwah, your Elohim. You either believe this book or you don't. I mean, that's all to it. In verse 11, do not be a consulter with familiar spirits, a wizard, or a necromancer. That's why in 1 Samuel 28:3, King Saul got rid of him, because the Most High YAH probably gave word through Prophet Samuel to get rid of all of those folks, per Deuteronomy 18:10 through 13. But King Saul kept one in his side pocket, just in case he needed. King Saul, he was always doing things for the Most High YAH halfway. It's like, I don't understand. Why don't we try and do it 100 for a change? Yeah, sometimes it don't feel good. Sometimes it ain't the greatest thing, but it'll be much, much better for us in the end if we just 100 from the start. So in verse 8, King Saul, he's like, man, it's Halloween. So King Saul disguised himself and put on other raiment. And he went, and 2 men went with him. And they came to the woman by night. And he said, I pray thee, divine unto me by the familiar spirit, and bring me him up, whom I shall name to you. So first of all, King Saul disguised himself, and he went there by night. Now, I'm gonna tell you, I used to tell my children all the time, if you gotta hide something, it's because it's something wrong with doing it. The things that you don't have to hide is something that is okay. But if you hiding something, it's something wrong. It's something wrong with it. That's a hint right there. Go ask Adam and Eve when they hid in the garden from the voice of Yahuwah. When they hid from his voice, it was because they knew they did something wrong. But here it is, King Saul, he's disguised himself, he's coming at night, and he's coming straight up and saying, look, divine for me by familiar spirit, and bring me up him whom I shall name unto you. So he wants the Witch of Endor to bring up somebody for him. Verse 9, and the woman said unto him, behold, or look, I'm gonna tell you something. You know what Saul had done, how he had cut off those that have a familiar spirit, and the wizards out of the land. Wherefore then layest thou a snare for my life to cause me to die? She was like, man, you know, King Saul got rid of all of those witches and stuff like that. Why you come to me? You trying to trick me, trying to trap me, you trying to get me killed. She reminded King Saul that he was supposed to get rid of her. But he was always keeping Torah halfway. He was always talking about, go all know my heart and all of that other foolishness. What it say in Leviticus 19:31? It say, regard not them that have familiar spirits. Notice that people have familiar spirit. Neither seek after wizards to be defiled by them. I am Yahuwah, your Elohim. I wasn't gonna say this, but give me Numbers 23:23. I had somebody call me one time. They was worried about somebody putting a spell on them. And I told them, I said, let's go to Numbers 23:23. And it says, surely, I mean, positively, 100%, there is no enchantment against your code. There ain't nothing nobody could do against your code. Neither is there any divination against Israel. According to this time, it shall be said of your code and of Israel, what had Elohim wrought? There is no enchantment against your code. There is no divination against Israel. If you are keeping Torah 100, you don't have to worry about that foolishness. Because if somebody, I'm gonna put a curse on you, I'm gonna look, man, I'm gonna tell you what, you do what you want, but it's gonna fall back on you. Because there is no enchantment against your code. There is no divination against Israel. All right, let's go to 1 Samuel 28. Hopefully that helps somebody. If you're worried about people that's witches and stuff like that, I'm gonna put a curse on you. That look, if you keeping Torah 100, man, look at them and smile. Verse 10, and Saul swore to her by Yahuwah, saying, as Yahuwah liveth, there shall no punishment happen to you for this thing. Now, Saul came up in there in a disguise that night, and she told him, look, you know, King Saul, he put all the witches and stuff away. You know, you trying to trap me and stuff. And in verse 10, King Saul swore to her by Yahuwah, saying, as Yahuwah liveth, there shall no punishment happen to thee for this thing. She got King Saul to swear to her that nothing would happen to her. But guess what? He didn't only just swear to her and made a covenant to her, but he made a covenant to her and swore by Yahuwah. Highlight that for me. Highlight that for me. King Saul, that dude, he done jumped off bad. He done jumped off bad. He is making a covenant with her and swearing by Yahuwah that he's not going to punish her per Deuteronomy 18, 10 through 13, that says, do not have them witches and warlocks, necromancers, familiar spirit people amongst you to stone them. And Saul swearing that, you know what, I'm not going to kill you. I promise I'm not going to keep Torah. That's what he's saying. He's saying, I'm not going to keep Torah. Don't worry about me. I'm not going to kill you. I know Torah says to do that, to get rid of you, but I swear by Yahuwah. I mean, that dude fell off hard. So he made an oath and a covenant with the Witch of Endor, swearing by Yahuwah, shaking my head, SMH, that he not going to do what Torah said to do. Verse 11. Then said the woman, whom shall I bring up unto you? Now she got confirmation from King Saul. Who shall I bring up for you? And he said, bring me up Samuel. And so she said, who shall I bring up? Now, if she was a true psychic, if she was true in what she was dealing with, she would have known who he wanted already. And she'd have been like, okay, you want Samuel? I'm going to do that. Or he'd have been like, yeah. But he's like, bring me up Samuel. In verse 12, and when the woman saw Samuel, she cried with a loud voice, and the woman spake to Saul, saying, why have you deceived me? For you are Saul. Now, she knew all along that he was King Saul. When she said, look, King Saul got rid of all of us, and you want me to entrap myself? And she would have never brought nobody up if King Saul wouldn't have swore to her and promised to her by Yahuwah that nothing would happen to her. And now she want to play, oh, you King Saul. She put that out in the room, basically. She's like, okay, I'm going to let him know I know he King Saul. Verse 13, and the king said to her, be not afraid, because I ain't keeping Torah. I'm not going to do what Torah said to do. For what saw you? And the woman said unto Saul, I saw gods ascending out of the earth. And he said unto her, what form is he of? And she said, an old man coming up, and he is covered with a mantle. And Saul perceived that it was Samuel, and he stooped with his face to the ground and bowed himself. Verse 15, and Samuel said to Saul, why have you disquieted me? Why are you disturbing me, man, to bring me up? And Saul answered, I am sore distressed, for the Philistines make war against me, and Elohim is departed from me, and answered me no more, neither by prophets nor by dreams. Therefore I have called you, that you may make known unto me what I shall do. So Saul, he admitted, he tried to go to prophets, but they didn't give him no answer from Yah. So he's like, man, what else can I do but run to a worldly device called a Witch of Endor and try and get my answer there? King Saul, he was just about being a prosperity pimp. It was like Most High YAH was just his good luck charm, his rabbit foot, his horseshoe, you see. And if he couldn't get nothing good from the Most High YAH, then hey, it's cool to run to the world, get it from wherever you can. I mean, if Most High YAH ain't giving you no answer, go ahead and get your answer from the world, because he know our hearts like that. Saul couldn't use Elohim no more. He couldn't use the Most High YAH no more, because Most High YAH wasn't talking to him, because he kept on breaking Torah. Now he was going to run to the world and use the Witch of Endor, even though he knew that doing so was against Torah. Saul was trying to get an answer from the prophets. He was trying to do it in dreams. Saul knew that the battle was coming and that he might get killed, and he needed an answer. His whole life, he wasn't keeping Torah like that. But now, the night before the battle, he needs to get an answer bad. They got people today base their whole eternal destiny on whether or not they could get a deathbed confession in before they die. Isn't that sad? Isn't that sad? And here was King Saul. He was trying to get his deathbed confession in at the last minute. Never was living by the book the whole time. But now, all of a sudden, the clock is ticking on him, and he needs an answer, and it's deathbed confession time. This reminds me of the thief on the so-called cross. I shouldn't have went to that, but I'm going to break it down real quick. It said, and Yahushua said unto him, verily I say unto thee, today shalt thou be with me in paradise. The way it's written there, it says that the thief on the so-called cross will be with Mashiach today in paradise. But there's a problem. In John chapter 20, verse 17, when Mary come up at the tomb, Yahushua said unto her, touch me not, for I am not yet ascended to my Father. But go to my brethren and say unto them, I ascend unto my Father and your Father, and to my Elohim and to your Elohim. He told her, don't touch me because I'm not ascended to my Father yet. Was Mashiach in paradise yet if he didn't ascend to his Father yet? Where it said in that about the thief in the cross? He's like, me and the thief in the cross, we're not ascended yet. Who he said not ascended yet? The thief, me and that thief on the cross, we not ascended yet? No. Oh, man. Go down to verse 19. Mary Magdalene, she goes and she tells the disciple and everything. Then the same day at evening, being the first day of the week when the doors were shut, where the disciples were assembled for fear of the Yehudim, came Yahusha and stood in the midst of them and said unto them, peace be with you. Now, I got a question. That same day in the evening, was Mashiach in paradise yet? I'm just trying to figure out if he was in paradise. It was the same day. It wasn't morning no more. It was evening. He was still hanging around. And in verse 19, it said the same day evening, being the first day of the week, when the doors were shut, where the disciples were assembled for fear of the Yehudim, came Yahusha and that thief on the cross. The Yahusha and the, how like that? Came Yahusha and the thief on the cross and stood in their midst. Right? The thief on the cross was with him, right? Where's the thief on the cross? Where did that bad confession people at? What did it mean by you're going to be with me today in paradise? Luke 23:43. Yahusha said to the thief on the so-called cross, verily I say unto you, today you shall be with me in paradise. You know the problem with this verse here? Go to that word the and highlight that comma. That's the problem. One jot and one tittle. Where the comma is right there, it makes it seem as though the thief on the so-called cross would be with Mashiach in paradise that same day. But we know that when they took Mashiach down, Mashiach spent how many days in the grave? And when he rose up again and they started seeing him, his buddy, the thief on the cross, was with him. Something's not straight. Most theologians and Netanyahu say that that comma is in the wrong place. Mashiach said, verily I say unto thee, today shalt thou be with me in paradise. But that comma should be where I keep put that cursor at. Verily I say unto you today. I'm telling you this today. You're going to be with me in paradise. I'm telling you that you're going to be with me in paradise. But I'm saying it today, but it's not that you're going to be with me in paradise today, because there's no scripture evidence to show that Mashiach, nor the thief on the so-called cross, went to paradise the day they died on the stake. The deathbed people that's waiting for your deathbed so you can try and get things right at the last minute. You'll be hustling at the last minute, saying your Our Fathers and all of these other prayers and hoping that Most High could hear you. You're going to be like King Saul, who built an altar and couldn't hear nothing from the Most High because you ain't trying to hear nothing from him all your life. And at the last minute on your deathbed, you're going to be trying to hope for the best. I'm going to just say it like this. And I don't believe in luck, but good luck with that. And I hope your deathbed confession it can actually happen if that's what you're waiting on, and not that you actually meet death on the highway one day and don't even get to think about it, don't even get to say, oh, forgive me, before the accident happened. I just hope the deathbed confession people can make it to confess before that time actually happened. But King Saul, he was like the deathbed confession people back in 1 Samuel 28:16, and he was just waiting for the last minute to try and get an answer from the Most High YAH. Couldn't get an answer from the Most High YAH, so he was up in the face of the Witch of Endor trying to get an answer from the world, trying to do it the worldly way. 1 Samuel 28:16, then said Samuel, wherefore then dost thou ask me, seeing Yahuwah is departed from you and is become your enemy? And Yahuwah had done to him as he spake by me, for Yahuwah had rent the kingdom out of your hand and given it to your neighbor, even to David. Verse 18, because you obeyed not the voice of Yahuwah, nor executed his fierce wrath upon Amalek. Therefore had Yahuwah done this thing unto you this day. It was all tied to obeying the voice of Yahuwah, and Saul's disobedience is finally catching up with him. In verse 19, moreover, Yahuwah will also deliver Israel with you into the hand of the Philistines. Tomorrow shall you and your sons be with me. And Yahuwah also shall deliver the host of Israel into the hand of the Philistine. So you're going to be dead tomorrow, is what she's saying. Then Saul fell straightway along the earth and was so afraid because of the words of Samuel. And there was no strength in him, for he had eaten no bread all the day, nor the night. When he heard that him and his sons was going to die the next day, Saul fell straightway all along the earth. Look, Saul passed out, y'all. He went out for a minute. He blacked out. He's like, oh, no, I was looking for some better news than this. Yeah, somebody should have called him and put somebody's nose smelling salt or whatever, try and get him back and everything. But pop quiz for the Bible scholars. Here we go. Was that really Samuel talking to King Saul and making King Saul faint? In verse 7, it says, then Saul said unto his servants, seek me a woman that had a familiar spirit, that I may go to her and inquire of her. And his servant said to him, behold, there is a woman with a familiar spirit at Endor. It wasn't that the spirit of prophet Samuel was coming out. The woman had the spirit. She had a familiar spirit. Let's see what familiar spirit means. Click on familiar. We know spirit is ruach. And notice it says a mumble, water, a necromancer, a ventriloquist, as from a jar. On necromancy, it says necromancy is to conjuration of the spirits of the dead for purpose of magically revealing the future or influencing the course of event. So King Saul went to this woman that had a familiar spirit, somebody who would conjure the spirits of the dead for the purpose of magically revealing the future or influencing the course of event. It's magic, sorcery. Let's find out what conjure means. To summon the dead or evil spirit by invocation, cantation, to practice magic arts, to use a conjurer's tricks, juggle. Whoa, wait a minute, to juggle? Juggling is conjuring? Let's find out what juggling means. It's not that dude with the balls, the bowling pins, throwing them up in the air. To practice deceit or trickery on, beguile. So when he was going with this woman with this familiar spirit thing, what she was doing was practicing deceit or trickery on him to manipulate or arrange, especially in order to achieve a desired end. Juggle, a trick of magic, a show of manual dexterity, an act of manipulation, especially to achieve a desired end. So she was going to manipulate stuff to try and trick or deceive King Saul to make sure that she get a desired end. Man, I tell you, you find out new things every day. I didn't know juggling. I would have never known juggling was to practice deceit or trickery. To conjure, I would have never known. Or to summon, rather, a devil or spirit by invocation or incantation. Necromancy is to call up the spirits of the dead for the purpose of magically revealing the future. She had a familiar spirit. Samuel the prophet was not the spirit. She had the familiar spirit, and her spirit was that of a ventriloquist. It says in Strong. She, some kind of way, was throwing her voice to make it seem like, because she was a necromancer and she had this spirit up in her, and this familiar spirit ain't nothing but a demonic spirit that tries to possess a person to make them believe in something that may or may not be true. Let's see, verse 11. Let's see what verse 11. So then the woman said, whom shall I bring up for you? Now, I'm going to tell you the story. True story. I knew this person, sad to say, that told me they called Miss Cleo. I don't know, y'all remember Miss Cleo used to run a commercial back then in the day, and she was like some palm reader, and you could call her, back when they had telephone hotline, you could call the 800 or 900 number, and you could talk to this one or that one, and they would charge you 99 cents a minute. Or I remember Miss Cleo because of this person that told me about the experience calling Miss Cleo. And this person told me, like, yeah, I called Miss Cleo and she told me everything. Man, she knew some things. She knew this and that and this and that. I said, well, what did she tell you? I went in Torah back then, so I was like, man, what did Miss Cleo tell you like that? Knowing back in my church days that wasn't straight, but I was like, man, this person was so excited about Miss Cleo. Tell me what Miss Cleo told you. I want to know what she knew, everything about me. Like what? And they started telling me what Miss Cleo told them. And this and that. I said, well, look, let me ask you. When Miss Cleo told you that, did she ask you anything? And she was like, yeah, she asked me what the problem was, and I told her, and then she started telling me this and that. And so basically, Miss Cleo told you exactly what you told her. Man, when I said this to this person, they face dropped, and it's like, well, yeah, but it was good. It was good. I like, man, so how much money you done spent on Miss Cleo? Almost $100 on Miss Cleo, for Miss Cleo to repeat to you in a fancy way what you told Miss Cleo. So check this out. In 1 Samuel chapter 28, verse 11. Then said Miss Cleo, the Witch of Endor, whom shall I bring up for you? And what does King Saul say? Bring me up Samuel. Guess what happened next? And when the woman saw Samuel, she saw Samuel, y'all. He said, bring me up Samuel. And guess who she saw? Samuel. Miss Cleo, the Witch of Endor, she is good. She brought up Samuel. How did she know to bring up Samuel? How did she know that? She brought up Samuel because, that's what he said. He told her. He told her to bring up Samuel. How did she know that that was Samuel? Because in verse 11, he said, bring up Samuel. And she cried with a loud voice. So she screamed. I mean, you got to add some theatrics to this thing to make it legit. I mean, you got to make it like, it's got to be something legit, right? So she got to do something weird. So she screamed with a loud voice. And the woman spoke to Saul, saying, why you deceive me? You're a Saul. And she knew all of that already. But she already knew he was King Saul, because in verse 9 and 10, they made an agreement. And she already told him that, hey, look, you know, King Saul said, and she decided to do this necromancy thing because she knew that he made a vow to her, swearing by Yahuwah, that he wasn't going to kill her per Torah. So she already knew he was King Saul. Because first of all, King Saul, like, he reassured her, look, don't worry, don't be afraid. I'm not going to kill you like Torah said for me to do. Most High YAH already told me to kill you, but I kept you in the side pocket for a rainy day, and here we are today. So let's get this done. Okay, let's break Torah together. Verse 13, and the king said to her, be not afraid, for what sawest thou? So he's like, what do you see? What do you see? And the woman said unto Saul the king, I saw gods, G-O-D-S-S, ascending out of the earth. I don't know about y'all, but that G-O-D-S-S don't begin with a capital G. A capital G would mean like something pertaining to Elohim, Most High YAH, but it's a little g. And check out, where did those little g's come from? They ascended out of the earth. Now, let me ask you, ascend means ascend means to go up. So they came up out of the earth. But then they say in Matthew 6:9 that our Father who art in heaven. Wouldn't you think that anything coming from the Most High YAH out of heaven would descend from heaven and not ascend from earth? I don't know. That's just that Yahoo talking. If she telling me something ascended from the earth and not descended from heaven, Mashiach even told us, and I believe it's John 3:13, that he descended from heaven and he's gonna ascend back to heaven. She dealing with something coming from the abyss, y'all. We talking about demons is what she dealing with. She is getting possessed with a demon. It's like that movie, man. I should have pulled that little clip up with Whoopi Goldberg. I forgot the name of the movie, where she's playing like she's got a familiar spirit. And she's, yeah, that's it goes. And all of a sudden she gets possessed and she's telling people about their dead ones, and it's all a scam. In the movie ends up she getting possessed supposedly by a real ghost. It tells you it's all a scam at first, where she's playing and they're making noise in the background and trying to give the people their money's worth. But here it is she's dealing with demons here, because it's little g's coming out of the earth and not coming from the Most High to earth. Verse 14, and he said unto her, what form is he of? And she said, an old man coming up, and he is covered with a mantle. Samuel was the prophet for the entire nation of Israel. This witch of Endor, she knew exactly. When he said, pull me up Samuel, bring up Samuel, she knew exactly that Samuel was an old man with a mantle. She not saying nothing that wasn't common knowledge. And Saul perceived that it was Samuel. This was his perception. He wants an answer so bad that he is chomping at the bit to, oh, you see Samuel? You see Samuel? Okay, good. Notice he said, what form is he of? You know what that tells me? He couldn't see who she was dealing with, but he perceived. What did he perceive? Not with his eyes. He didn't see nothing with his eyes. He perceived in his mind. He was like, man, it's got to be. She said it's Samuel. It's an old man with a mantle. It's got to be. He's asking, what form is he of? Meaning he can't see who she dealing with. And estimating, assuming, guessing, hey, yeah, she's got to be right. It's Samuel. And the next thing he does is he stooped with his face to the ground and bowed himself. Now, I'm going to ask a pop quiz. Who was he bowing down to when he bowed down? He was bowing down to that woman because that's the only thing he could see. The only one he could see was her, because she was the one that was pulling the strings. You see, he told her, I wanted Samuel. And so you're like, okay, it's Samuel, it's an old man with a man. And he said, what form is he of? Because he couldn't see Samuel. He couldn't see nothing. He was relying on her to tell him what she was seeing. So when it says Saul perceived, he perceived her saying that it was Samuel. And so when he decided to bow down out of respect, he would bow down to her. He bowed himself to her with his face to the ground. And she was like, man, I got him now. I got him now. Verse 15, and Samuel said to Saul, the Witch of Endor, playing the character of Samuel, said to Saul, why have you disturbed me to bring me up? And Saul answered, I'm so displeased. Here we go, y'all. Miss Cleo gathering intel. Miss Cleo says, why have you disturbed me to bring me up? What do you want with me? What do you want with Samuel? And Saul answered, I am sore distressed, for the Philistines make war against me. And Elohim with a capital G, not the little G's that come up out of the earth that she was talking about. Elohim with a capital G is departed from me and answer me no more, neither by prophets nor by dreams. Therefore, I have called you. I went to the world and called you through this Witch of Endor, this necromancer with a familiar spirit that I'm supposed to kill per Torah. But I'm calling you through this ventriloquist, this juggler who beguiling and deceiving me, calling you that you may make known unto me what I should do. I want to know what I should do because Elohim is departed from me and answering me no more. He's not my friend. He's not my friend no more. He's not answering me. He's not answering me neither by prophets or dreams. She tells him, why have you disturbed me? And he just tells her everything. He said, I'm very worried because the Philistines coming to war with me. And Elohim is not my friend no more. He's not with me. He won't answer me through prophets or by dreams. And that's why I'm calling you for answer. Verse 16, then Samuel, that is the Witch of Endor, said, wherefore then dost thou ask of me? Here she is. She coming back at him, seeing, why are you asking me this? Seeing Yahuwah is departed from you. But where she got that from? It's in verse 15, the previous verse. And guess who said that? In verse 15. Guess who said it? Highlight Elohim is departed from me. Elohim is departed from me. And guess what she said in verse 16? Why are you asking me, seeing Elohim is departed from you? Miss Cleo is slick. She's like telling him everything he told her. And Elohim departed from you and is become your enemy. Now she was, man, that was good. She know her business. She's determined if Elohim departed from you, he's not answering you, he's not answering you through prophets or dreams, then Elohim must be your enemy. He don't want to be your friend no more. And so Elohim is become your enemy. Ha ha ha. Elohim become your enemy. He's not with you no more. I mean, tell me something that I haven't told you already. I'm gonna tell you, they got Hebrews and Israelites out there that believe that Samuel was really talking and really doing this thing. They don't recognize and realize that everything she is saying to him is information, intelligence, intel that she have gathered already from him. In verse 17, and Yahuwah had done to him as he spake by me, for Yahuwah had rent the kingdom out of his hand and had given it to your neighbor David. Now, she is saying, as Samuel, that Yahuwah taking the kingdom from him and giving it to David. And where did that come from? Y'all remember that day in 1 Samuel 15 and 22 when he said obedience better than sacrifice, and that because you don't obey the voice of the Most High YAH, I reject you from being king, and I'm going to give this kingdom to one of your neighbors. If you remember that day in 1 Samuel 15 when the whole army heard Samuel the prophet tell King Saul, look, Yahuwah reject you as king, and he's going to give his kingdom to somebody else. This was common knowledge. And here she is spitting out that common knowledge again. She knows he's King Saul, and she knows that the army, when they came back, they was telling their wives, and everybody is like, man, Prophet Samuel said that King Saul rejected from being king. Yahuwah rejected him. Man, I'm gonna see what's gonna happen now, man. It was the gossip of the town. It was the gossip of the town. And surely this Witch of Endor heard this same gossip. And now she's spitting that gossip back out to King Saul in this time of desperation. She done got him to bow down to her already. And so she's throwing it all at him. In verse 18, because you obey not the voice of Yahuwah. Same thing Samuel told him in 1 Samuel 15. It's like, because you obey not the voice of Yahuwah. She's repeating the same. She's picking and piecing together everything that she done heard, either from King Saul or from other people. Samuel said, because he obeyed not the voice of Yahuwah. That's why he taking the kingdom from him. He rejected as being king. Oh, man, that's cold. You know, and it went all around town. Because you obey not the voice of Yahuwah, nor executed his fierce wrath upon Amalek. Therefore, Yahuwah had done this thing unto you this day. It's like, wow. Man, she seems to know it all. But it's all coming from 1 Samuel 15. Go back and look at that in your own leisure. 1 Samuel chapter 15, this is exactly what the prophet Samuel told to King Saul, because he didn't kill the Amalekites and utterly destroyed him. Okay, verse 19, moreover, check this part out. This man, she getting personal now. Moreover, Yahuwah will also deliver Israel with you into the hand of the Philistines, and tomorrow shall you and your sons be with me. Samuel, Yahuwah also shall deliver the host of Israel into the hand of the Philistines. Now, some people are like, well, she got that right. How she knew that? Hey, she was working with a demonic spirit. They might have a little something. I don't know. But check out what happened. King Saul was said to have went all over and killed all those who had familiar spirits, who was wizards and warlocks and witches and stuff like that. No telling how many people that King Saul killed in the Witch of Endor's family, all her good buddies who they used to get together and light candles in a circle and chant and stuff like that and do all of that evil stuff. Right now, I think Witch of Endor, she just like, man, I got him bowing down to me. He believing everything I say. I'm gonna tell him you dying tomorrow. You're gonna die, just like you kill all of my family and friends when you went around and killing, per Deuteronomy chapter 18, verse 10 through 13, killing all the witches and warlocks. But you left me, and guess what? Just like you left me, you left one of those Amalekites. And now the Most High don't want to deal with you no more. And so when she said, tomorrow you're going to be with me in the grave, when she was playing like she was Samuel, verse 20, then Saul fell straightway along the earth and was so afraid because the words of Samuel, and there was no strength in him, for he had eaten no bread all day, nor all the night. King Saul passed out, y'all. King Saul passed out. Ecclesiastes chapter 9, for those who might think that it was Samuel actually risen from the dead. Ecclesiastes chapter 9, verse 4. Let me tell you what it says. The wisest man outside of Adam, outside of Yahushua HaMashiach, said this. Ecclesiastes 9:4. For to him that is joined to the living, there's hope. If you're alive, there's hope. For a living dog is better than a dead lion. A living dog is better than a dead lion because it's alive in regards to hope. Verse 5, for the living know that they will die, but the dead know not anything. Highlight the dead know not anything. The dead know not anything. Samuel the prophet didn't know anything. Neither have they any more reward. He can't get nobody that say, hey, man, you did a good job. Dab you up. For the memory of them is forgotten. Also their love and their hatred. What the ones they love and the ones they hated. The things they love and the things they used to hate. Their envy, the things they were jealous of, is now perished. I mean, the dead know nothing. Everything they used to love, everything they used to hate is gone. They don't have to worry about that no more. Neither have they any more portion forever in anything that is done under the sun. Neither have they any more portion forever in anything that is done under the sun. Samuel the prophet did not come back from the dead. The dead knows nothing and have no more portion. They cannot contribute to anything more forever. Nothing that's done under the sun. Job 14:12 says this, so man lie down and rise not till the heavens be no more. They shall not awake nor be raised out of sleep. When a person dies, they rise not till the heavens be no more. Mashiach said that one jot nor one tittle would in no wise go away from the Torah until heaven and earth would be no more. And that's when we're going to rise. They shall not awake nor be raised out of sleep. Samuel, he did not rise out of his sleep. He stayed in the grave. That wasn't Samuel we was dealing with the Witch of Endor. That was a demonic spirit who was possessing her because she had a familiar spirit. The spirit of Samuel did not rise. Samuel never did come back again. The dead rise not until the resurrection. Let's go back 1 Samuel 21. Saul passes out. And the woman says to Saul, she's like, man, this dude here, I got him good. And the woman said to Saul, and saw that he was sore troubled, and said to him, behold, your handmaid had obeyed your voice, and I have put my life in your hand, and have hearkened unto the words which you spoke to me. And so she said in verse 22, now therefore I pray thee, hearken you also unto the voice of your handmaid, and let me set a morsel of bread before you, and eat that you may have strength when you go on your way. So she's like, look, let me set some food in front of you, and so you can eat, man. I know you haven't eaten. And verse 23, but he refused and said, I will not eat. He never ate nothing. In verse 20, it tells us he never ate nothing all day and all night. I wonder if King Saul was trying to fast. I wonder if he was trying to actually fast and get closer to the Most High like that. I'm just wondering, was he fasting, or he was just so afraid he couldn't eat nothing? But in verse 23, when she offered food, he refused and said, I will not eat. Well, look what happened. There he goes again, listen to people. But his servants together with the woman, the Witch of Endor, compelled him, and he hearkened unto their voice. So he rose up from the earth and sat upon the bed. So now he's sitting on his woman's bed. Oh, my goodness. Saul finally was trying to repent. He was on his face. He hadn't ate nothing all day. It was like he was trying to fast. He was trying to draw close to the Most High YAH. And it's like, man, look, you need to eat something. Look, I got some food. Come on, eat, man. And he got up and he decided to eat. He decided to eat. This was his moment where he could have repent. Don't you know when we repent, the Most High changed his heart and his mind about our consequences sometimes? He's done it in the script, so I know he do it for us personally. So here he blew it again, where he decided he's going to listen to the Witch of Endor and to his own dirty servants who found the Witch of Endor for him, because they didn't kill her like they were supposed to. They was like, come on, eat something. And he got up and decided to go eat. Verse 24, and the woman had a fat calf in the house, and she hastened and killed it, and took flour and kneaded and did break unleavened bread thereof. The Witch of Endor had a fat calf ready, y'all. Do y'all know what the fat calf is? In Leviticus 9:2 and 9 and 8, it tells us that a young calf is a sin offering, in verses 2 and also in verses 8 in Leviticus chapter 9. This woman of Endor in 1 Samuel 28:24 had a fat calf in the house. She had a sin offering and she killed it. She took some flour, and look what she did. She took some unleavened bread. This was going to be an offering in verse 25, and she brought it before Saul and his servants, and they did eat. Then they rose up and went away that night. King Saul and them, they ate the fatted calf of the sin offering, and they left. 1 Samuel chapter 31, verse 3, he comes to his final moment in the battle. And the battle went sore against Saul, and the archers hit him, and he was sore wounded of the archers. So they shot him up with some arrows. Then said Saul unto the armor bearer, draw your sword and thrust me through. So he's like, man, to his armor bearer, he's like, kill me therewith, lest these uncircumcised come and thrust me through and abuse me. He's like, if you don't kill me, they're going to come and abuse me. But his armor bearer would not, for he was so afraid. The armor bearer's like, man, I'm not killing you. You the king. I fear the Most High YAH. So guess what Saul did? Therefore, Saul took a sword and fell on it. King Saul tried to commit suicide. When the armor bearer saw that Saul was dead, he fell likewise on his sword and died with him. So Saul died, and his 3 sons, and his armor bearer, and all his men that same day together. 2 Samuel 1:5. And David said in 2 Samuel 1:5, David said unto the young man that told him that King Saul was dead, how knowest that Saul and Jonathan, his son, be dead? And the young man that told him said, as I happened by chance upon Mount Gilboa, behold, Saul leaned upon his spear, and lo, the chariots and horsemen followed after him. It's like, man, Saul had stabbed himself, and he was on the verge of dying, but he's not dead. And when he looked behind him, he saw me and called unto me, and I answered, here am I. And he said unto me, who are you? And I said unto him, I am an Amalekite. I am one of those people you should have killed back in 1 Samuel chapter 15, when you should have utterly destroyed the Amalekites, but you didn't kill me. And he said unto me again, stand, I pray thee, upon me, and slay me. King Saul begging, please kill me, for anguish has come upon me, because my life is yet holding. I'm still alive. I'll try to kill myself. I'm still alive. Please kill me. In verse 10, so I stood upon him and slew him, because I was sure that he could not live. After that, he was fallen, and I took the crown that was upon his head and the bracelet that was on his arm, and have brought them hither to my master. So the Amalekite took his crown and his bracelets and stuff and brought it to David. 1 Chronicles chapter 10, verse 13. So Saul died for his transgression. So this is the reason Saul died. Saul died for his transgression, which he committed against Yahuwah, even against the word of Yahuwah. Because he transgressed against the word of Yahuwah, which he kept not, and also for asking counsel of one that had a familiar spirit to inquire of it. He died for 2 reasons. Saul died for his transgression, which he committed against Yahuwah, even against the word of Yahuwah, which he kept, and also for asking counsel of one that had a familiar spirit to inquire of it. It was 2 reasons he died. And one of those reasons was because he went to the Witch of Endor. He went to somebody with a familiar spirit, and he actually asked a familiar spirit person something and put his hope in them instead of in the Most High YAH. Had he not gone to the Witch of Endor, maybe he would not have perished that day. Maybe that wouldn't have been his death day. But because he was totally and completely gone, there was no hope for him after not listening to the word of Most High YAH, and also not killing all of the witches, and then going to the one he saved as a backup plan. I tell you, the familiar spirit wasn't Samuel rising. It was the woman who was dealing with the demons herself. In conclusion, Mr. Picard, death is final. The dead knows nothing. According to Ecclesiastes chapter 9, verse 4-6, familiar spirits are people who have demons. And we, as the children of Most High YAH, as Israelites, we need to do what Saul was trying to do, but they talked him out of it, which is fast and lay on our faces and pray to the Most High YAH. Don't let somebody talk you out of the day of your repentance, because you never know if that day you repent might be your last day. Most of all, Mishpachah, we have to obey Torah, and we have to keep it with all of our heart, mind, soul, and strength. Today's message is encouraging you to seek life more abundantly, and that's the title of the message today, Life More Abundantly. If you like today's message, Mishpachah, consider supporting this work of the kingdom. Torah, Rabah, Ahava, Shalom, Mishpachah.